Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ніхто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Брекаing.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Хотите жить – бегите. Хотите жить – сдавайтесь в плен. Россия не получит новую территорию Украины. Россия присоединит себя к той катастрофе, которую она принесла на оккупированную территорию нашей страны. Оккупант заполняет могилами захваченную территорию Украины. И все больше могил на территории самой России. Ценой того, что один человек в России хочет продолжать эту войну, кто хочет войны больше, чем жизнь. Ваши жизни, граждане России.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 548 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And of course, we're learning today that the Russians aren't having a very good time.
And of course, they are not having a good time. And we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine here on the 548th day of the war. And something that I was thinking today is that while I was watching a lot of these clips, which are going to be shown tonight, almost all of them will be, very few of them had to be filtered out today. While I was watching these clips before the show ran tonight, I was sitting there and watching many videos of many brave Ukrainian soldiers, all the way from Bakhmut and down to the area around Robotyne, fighting as hard as they could to continue to push forward this front line. And the videos that we are going to see today, and every single part of the front line, are absolutely incredible, and you see the highest amounts of valor and selflessness being exhibited by these soldiers as they continue to try and fight the Russians out of their own country. It is absolutely amazing and incredible to think that over 548 days of a war that has been going on with almost no end in sight, the Ukrainians still have the spirit and the fighting will to continue on this war like it was the very first day of their nation's defense. And because of that, that made me think that while every once in a while, Matthew and me do get tired, and I'll have to admit with y'all, today was a tiresome day for both of us. We are bushed. Watching these videos reminds me that as long as a Ukrainian soldier is on that battlefield, and as long as a Ukrainian soldier is continuing to push Russian forces back, we will be on this channel 6 days a week, every single day until this war ends. We are going to be covering this war, not just for all of y'all across the world, but the Ukrainian soldiers that also watch this show as well, so that way we can stick with them every single step of the way and continue to support them until the very end of the war. And so with that, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and it's now time for us to get right into the news. Starting off on the Southern Front tonight, as we saw, the Ukrainian forces are once again pushing with almost all of their forces available in the area to try and push through the areas of Robotyne and also the village chain near Staromanivka. The Ukrainian armed forces are doing an amazing job, an absolutely incredible one, and it appears to have been such an effective job today. Some Russian commanders are even saying in these areas of the front that the front line is beginning to crack and beginning to truly break at its seams. We understand at the moment that Ukrainian forces are at the south of Robotyne and currently fighting around the village of Novoprokopivka. We went into a great deal of battlefield analysis in this area yesterday, specifically around that village, and from what we can tell, the Ukrainians are probably going to be able to move through Novoprokopivka fairly well, unless if there are some entrenchments and positions that we have not been able to account for at this moment yet. Novoprokopivka is on a flat plain, and not only that, there's a pretty substantial basing point or a weak point for Russian defenses that could be overrun by the Ukrainians and allow them to maneuver around the village and force the Russians into a retreat without even having to directly fight inside of the village itself. And as video footage was coming out today, it does appear that the Ukrainians are making a considerable amount of success in this area of the front. Starting off with our first clip, we saw some Ukrainian forces moving forward as a shell landed pretty close to them as they were moving on forward. We see them marching forward and turning around, and we can see a Russian artillery shell land on the street, and another one further back. But of course, the Ukrainians continue their push, regardless of the shelling, and are going to make sure to make it on out of Robotny and on towards Novoprokopivka. We now see the soldier showing that he was a little winded by the explosion, but beyond that, he is a-okay. And the rest of the squad is, of course, fine as well. With that, that's the end of that clip. But great to see the Ukrainians pressing on, even under some light artillery barrages, as they continue to move on to their next objective, which is Novoprokopivka, with the final village in front of the second defensive lines in the Surovikin positions. Moving on from that, we also got another clip, and this is largely a compilation of a lot of the battles that have been going on around Robotny. This isn't any particular part of the front. Of course, we put the marker in the dead center, right in the dead middle of where the Robotny front is at this moment, but that is not an accurate marker. These videos were actually compiled from every single part of the Robotny cauldron, all the way from the western wall to the southern end, and all the way over to the eastern wall as well. And so with that, here are the video clips. First, we can see Ukrainian Humvee passing by some destroyed BTRs, and now we can see a Ukrainian soldier moving around in the tree lines, and getting ready to give some Russians a little bit of a lesson. We now see the machine gunner laying down fire with what appears to be an M249, or an M240. We see him laying down some controlled bursts through the tree line at Russian forces. And we now see that the video footage has cut forward, and we now see a rifleman with an M4. We hear the rifleman yelling out some orders as the firefight continues in front of him in the bush. We can't see exactly what's happening in front of him, but it is an intense firefight to say the least. We now see him firing through the bush at the sound of the fire coming towards them.
Man, I don't think anybody knows what's going on at this point.
Bush fighting is absolute hell on earth, and we can see that most of the squad doesn't really know where the Russians are, and so they're having to fire blindly through the tree line. We can hear the machine gunner continuing to lay down fire onto the Russians. We now see the riflemen firing a wide spread into the tree line to keep the Russians' heads down. Now laying prone again to reload the M4. And we can now hear the sound of a drone. We can hear the Ukrainian yell out that it is a drone, and now he's moving into the tree line to try and get some cover, so that way the drone can't see him. We now hear artillery coming in. We're not sure whose artillery that is, whether it be Russian or Ukrainian. We now hear the machine gunner continuing to lay down fire.
Работаем. Аккуратно, короткими.
We see the rifleman laying down some more fire into the tree line. Of course, the firefight is largely a blind one. We now hear some artillery exploding in the distance as this soldier is helping out another with his pack. And we can also see that this soldier has also been slightly injured as well, but it has been blurred.
He took the opportunity to spray on some mosquito spray.
That's important, man. You don't want to get those little nasty mosquitoes on you because they could be carrying the malaria. But you now see him getting low as a mortar round flies right over him.
Huh?
Whoa?
Гена, як ти? Гена! У нас 300, у нас 300.
We now see them helping another wounded Ukrainian soldier. Of course, the battle's taking on casualties, but nevertheless, the Ukrainians continue to trudge on with their duties, making sure to continue the fight inside the tree line and also evacuate the wounded. We now see them tending to another wounded man, and it appears that the cameraman now has switched from a rifleman and a machine gunner to now we're watching a medic in the squad's body camera as he's showing their actions and duties during the middle of this battle. And you have to give a lot of respect to these Ukrainian medics because they work tirelessly, day in and day out. Regardless whether the sun shines or the moon beams down onto the ground, they continue on their work of getting out these brave soldiers so that way they can get medical care. And we can see this Humvee here leaving the battlefield, and it appears that an anti-personnel mine just went off right there. Or... no, actually... that was an FPV drone that was going for the Humvee, and you could see that it missed pretty massively. That's really no good way to say it. So, there it is. You can see the drone right there coming in, and it just misses. It wasn't even close. It was like 20 yards off. Oh, bleh, the Russians and their accuracy. I bet you that Russian was probably drunk as hell and saw two Humvees, so he hit the one in the rear, like instead of the one in front. Very lucky.
Did the Russians ever post footage of their FPV, like, drone attacks?
Not really. Probably because most of them are unsuccessful like that. They usually probably miss. But that's the end of the clip right there. And of course, a huge credit to those brave Ukrainian soldiers who continue to fight in the area of Robotny and continue to put their lives on the line so that way all of the Ukrainians, the millions of them that are in occupied territory, can have the hope of being liberated at some point before this war is over. Moving on a little bit further behind the lines, we also saw a group of Ukrainian soldiers in the back of a truck being transported to the front lines, and it looks like they were incredibly optimistic. And of course, it's great to see that the morale... hold on. Oh my lord. Oh my god. Is that the wrong marker? Hang on. Let me go look at this one. Oh my lord. It's the wrong marker. Would you believe it? Would you believe it? I put down the wrong marker right there. This is actually about the Russian defensive lines. So, really quickly, it appears that the video did not transfer over because there was a link issue. But to explain what happened at this marker, the video that we will not be able to show, is that some Ukrainian soldiers, about 6 of them, were in the back of a flatbed of a pickup truck, and they were being transported to the front lines, and as they were being transported, they were all joking around and laughing, having a good time, and of course kidding around with each other, like we normally see. And the video clip was supposed to show that while the battles have been incredibly intense in this area, and also quite difficult for the Ukrainian side, the morale is still incredibly high, which is something that we cannot say for the Russian forces. Anyways, moving on from the video that y'all will not be able to see, but hopefully was described well, we have gotten a statement from a Ukrainian commander, Polyak, talking about the frontline conditions in the area and what the Ukrainians expect from this offensive. Of course, the Ukrainians are always quite optimistic, but one thing that is important to remember as well is that the Ukrainians are not optimistic to the point of Russian optimism, where it just defies logic and reality. And according to this Ukrainian commander, this is what he has to say about the current situation that he's seeing in the area around Robotny. The bottom line: Russian defense lines are beginning to crumble. The Ukrainian army is advancing southward with some success, coming one step closer to taking fire control of the land corridor to Crimea. The stakes are already clear. All Russian supply lines, including railroads, are at stake. This means one thing: the Russian army is on the verge of losing its strategic positions. Therefore, we can predict a doubling of calls for negotiations in the near future to immediately stop the supply of weapons, and twice as many attempts to demoralize Ukraine by third parties to make Ukrainians lose faith in their abilities. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to regain what belongs to them. And I gotta say, that's a fairly accurate assessment, especially if the Ukrainians are able to push down to the city of Tokmak and take it. From what we understand, the city of Tokmak largely will be the death knell of Russian supply lines here in the south. While it is not the city of Melitopol, which is the final offensive goal of the Ukrainian forces pushing here in the south, Tokmak is in a very well-suited position. And if we take a look at some weaponry, for example, the M777, which we will pick right there, and we are going to take their longest range cell, let's say the M982 Excalibur, and let's check out the range from there, and let's say the Ukrainians started to set up artillery batteries around Tokmak once the town is taken. You can see that they have incredible control of the entire area, all the way from Vasilivka and all the way down south to just the outskirts of Melitopol. The M777 would be able to tie down Russian logistics forces trying to head to the front lines to resupply their troops in the area, and will be able to make sure that those Russian forces will be in a bad state, although the supplies may actually exist within Melitopol and the land corridor would not be affected. But that story begins to change quickly once we move from frontline heavy artillery into what we all know is the real heavy hitter of the artillery, the HIMARS. And so let me get y'all to the HIMARS real quick. And then we can see that Deep State UA has included every single artillery system that the Ukrainians have. And so now, here is the HIMARS. We see they put a little devil mask on that one because it's got a little bit of a reputation. But let's just go with the M30A1. They all largely have the same range. In fact, they all have the same range, but let's just go with the M30 for simplicity's sake. And let's say that this HIMARS set up about a mile behind Tokmak. Now you can see why taking Tokmak is going to be a serious issue. Because while they won't have physically cut the land corridor where the Russians are supplying the rest of their forces, they will be within artillery range clearly at that point. It won't be a good distance away. For example, if we were to move this, and let me try and move this up here if we can, and let me go back and grab the HIMARS right there, and let's go get the M30A1 again. If the HIMARS was to fire from Marikiv, for the large part, most of the Russian supply lines are actually out of range of the HIMARS at this moment. The M14 highway, which is the supply corridor, sits just a few miles outside of its range. So even taking Robotny and being able to push the line a little bit further to Tokmak will allow the HIMARS to finally be within range of the M14, but it will hardly be in range. Getting to Tokmak means that if the HIMARS was to fire from that area, it would largely be hitting and destroying its targets, even if they were moving at a somewhat slower pace on the main highway. And so that is massive news, and also a big reason why Tokmak is so important to see, and also why the Russians are incredibly concerned even right now. If the Ukrainians take Tokmak, while they won't have physically separated that land bridge, like I said earlier, they will be ensuring that the Russian supply lines in that area will be heavily crippled, both by heavy frontline artillery and also MLRS fire. The Ukrainians will be able to ensure that all the Russian forces in the west and in Crimea will be in a very bad condition, and also all the Russian forces in the Zaporizhia front on the western side of the southern front will also be in a very poor condition as well, as all of their supply lines will directly be threatened at that point. A massive development for Ukraine if they're able to achieve this, and also a huge demoralizing effect and also a massive logistical issue for the Russians. But moving on from that little update, we're also going to be moving a little bit behind the lines, where we saw that the Ukrainians destroyed a Russian MLRS today with some very effective counter battery. And actually, correction here, it was hit by a HIMARS, but this is a Mista S SPG. We can see the Mista S right there, and we can now see that it's already disappeared. Watch, Matthew, it's like a magic trick. Watch this, Matthew. I'm going to make this Mista S disappear like a stolichna, bled. The jigga, poof. And then it's
блядь,
gone.
like magician, блядь. Like, what's the guy's name? What's the magician?
Prigozhin. He disappeared.
Yes, sure, that works.
Oh, man. And
What is up with the apple riding the HIMARS, though? What is up with that?
I have absolutely no idea, Bled. That is a pretty bizarre one, I have to admit. While freaking eyelash gets into my eyeball. But very interesting. A little apple riding HIMARS, Bled. I have no idea what the apple has to do with the HIMARS. But hey,
Could
you
be
know,
the Kool-Aid Man, actually, now that I look at it some more. That kind of like an apple, maybe Kool-Aid Man. I don't know. He's about to bust through some walls, though.
dude, the Kool-Aid legal team is firing up the jet right now. They're flying to Ukraine. They're about to be going, oh yeah, into a Ukrainian court. I don't think that's the Kool-Aid Man. That can't be the Kool-Aid Man, because like that thing's tweaking, man. Look at the eyes. Like the Kool-Aid Man, he's just chill. This thing, though,
Yes.
looks like it just got done watching itself commit arson. I mean, that thing does not look like the Kool-Aid Man. But anyways,
And also, the name I was thinking about was Houdini, by the way. I see several people saying it now. My brain went totally blank, although I can't blame my poor old brain at this point. But that's who I was thinking about.
and so now we know it's Houdini. I still think Prigozhin's a bit of a magician. He has disappeared and no one's seen him yet. And also, every once in a while, some of y'all may have dads who are impressive magicians, because they always do this little magic trick where they say they're going to go get some milk from the grocery store and they never come back. I still miss you, Dad. But I'm just
Oh
kidding.
my
But
God, man!
anyway.
You said they may have dads.
Well,
It's kind of
yeah.
dark.
Well, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news at Rabotne, and we're now going to be moving on over to the area of Piatki-Kantki and Lubkowy, and also into the area of Kamyansky. We saw that the 15th Brigade, in the middle of the offensive, has just gotten itself a brand new ambulance, and this thing is very nice. And then, of course, provided by Western support, which is incredible to see.
Доброго вечора. Дякуємо організації Ukraine Aid Ops. Особливо дякуємо Ерко та Ані за допомогу в наданні.
Also, let me make sure to read the translations. If for some reason it didn't hit my head that I needed to read the translation. Good evening. We thank Ukraine Aid Ops. We especially thank Urko and Anna in providing the 15th Brigade with the operational purpose of this ambulance, which is already being actively used in positions and has already taken out some wounded. Thanks to your help, we as medics can save the lives of defenders. Again, thanks to the organization Ukraine Aid Ops, and especially Urko and Anna. Slava Ukraini, Horom Slava. But that's the end of the clip, and I gotta say, looking at the inside of this ambulance, as far as frontline ambulances go, this is a very nice one. This is a very high-end ambulance, and it's great to see that they are getting some of the most high-end and cutting-edge medical facilities for the Ukrainian army, because of course mitigating injuries and deaths in the armed forces of Ukraine is very important, because they don't have the manpower pool to draw on like the Russians do, and also it's good for morale. It inspires the troops, and this is a little bit of a morbid way of looking at it, but this is kind of how the military justifies high-end medical care. If a soldier knows he's going to be shot and his chances of surviving being shot or being hit by a shell is going to be low, he's going to be a lot more scared to get injured, because he knows that he will either be permanently messed up in a very bad way or he will end up dead. If the medical care is good and you're able to actually heal a soldier fairly well from their injuries or largely mitigate the risk of death after sustaining an injury, that gives them a little bit more encouragement and faith that if they did get injured, they still would be able to go about their lives normally after being injured. So that's kind of the reason why, from a morale side of things, top medical aid and top medical facilities like this is incredibly important, and also helps to make sure that attrition rates are also far lower as well. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into the area of Lizny, because many of y'all know the Russians are on the breaking point. And we've been saying this for a couple of days at this point. The Russians have even been saying it as well. But some Russians have thought, it's bad, but it could be worse, Bled. And so they started to try and dance. Apparently, they danced a little too much, and they alerted the drone to their presence, and then it didn't end up well. So he getting sticky with it.
Oh, it's that new Russian rain dance, calling for the drones to drop bomblets.
Man, look at him. And oh no. Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
Oh no. I don't think the drone would have spotted him that well if it wasn't for the guy getting jiggy with it. I think that may be what gave them away. But it doesn't really
He was
look
literally asking for it.
Dude, he literally was asking for it, man. He sat there, to the window, to the wall. And then he got the artillery.
To the floor.
Oh, man, yeah. And then the artillery came dropping down onto the tents. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And it's pretty funny to see that apparently that guy ended up getting the tents spotted a little bit easier than they would have been. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that area of the front line, and we're now going to be moving on over into the area of Huilopol and Polokhi. In the area of Huilopol, we actually saw a Ukrainian OSA launcher have a unsuccessful launch. Every once in a while, this does happen. I just wanted to show it to y'all because it was interesting to see. It's something of a rare oddity. Usually, OSAs don't have surface-to-air missile launch failures. It's usually other systems, but this was pretty interesting. So here's the clip. When you see the OSA down there on the street, lining up its target and spooling up the missile,
that's pretty cool. It's got a whole radar on top of it. Oh, damn. Just all right.
Dude, you said it's got a whole rail on it, and then that missile railed the field. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That one was a little faulty.
Oh, Mr. Faulty. It doesn't work.
And we can now see we can actually hear the Ukrainians saying, hey, something's wrong with the launcher. Something's wrong with the vehicle. And, you know, something is wrong with it. Hopefully they can fix the issue. I have a feeling it was probably specific to that one missile, because it appears that, and if we go back and look at the video, we'll do a little bit of a look on this thing, a look-see. Notice how the missile puts a hard input downwards. In fact, it looks like it's pulling as hard as it can to go down. So that appears to be a fault with the missile's computation systems, and it's probably something that doesn't affect the launcher or the other missiles. But pretty wild to see. You don't see missile failures like that often. It looks like an ST's rocket that failed.
Plexus Gaming said that they didn't miss. They were aiming for the anthill. Man, if the anthill was that troublesome, they had to fire a whole missile at it. That's some fire ants right there. That's Russian ants.
Man, dude, they sat there and heard the Russian ants sit there and go, Ruski mir. They said, hit that thing. Then they blew it up. But anyways, moving on from that little clip and on behind the lines and way back to the area of Polochi, I saw something that was absolutely insane today. I'll have to rabbit hole in this a little bit to give you all an idea of how insane this was to me. But we saw a picture today that apparently is coming from the southern front. And you can see right here that they're unloading a tank from a trailer. It's a T-10 heavy tank. Yeah.
Wow. That's old, isn't it?
Look, an old Soviet main battle tank. Oh, actually, it's a heavy tank. And also, this thing is so old, you can see the rust filling the air as the tracks have moved for like the first time in like maybe 50 years. But what is up with a T-10? Y'all probably have never even heard of a T-10 as far as this war has gone. And you would be completely within your rights to have never heard of this thing. This thing was introduced into Soviet service in 1954. That means that this will be one of the oldest tanks that is in service in any way, shape, or form inside of Ukraine at this point. The T-10 is obsolete by every single means. And don't get me wrong, the Russians also understand that as well. And so we are being told that this thing is going to be rolled into position. They're going to pour concrete around the hull. And the only thing that's going to be sticking out of the ground is the turret. And they're going to use it as a fixed bunker, pretty much. That's what the tank is going to turn into. Now, some of y'all are still probably going to say, that is backwards as hell. And it is. You don't see this kind of stuff in the modern world. I think the last time anyone would have seen anything like this would have been in Iraq in the Gulf War in the 90s. But you don't see this stuff now. And this is once again showing how desperate the Russians are for anything to be used against the Ukrainians at this point, is that they're going to start whipping out ancient tanks like the T-10 and put it onto a battlefield. Burnaby Alex just said, it belongs in a museum. That's a quote by Indiana Jones. And you're not wrong. This thing is belonging in a museum. Most of them are in museums, and I'll show you. Let's see here. Operators. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm sorry, everyone. Russia retired these things in 1996, so they're actually not that old as far as the last one in service. That was only about 20-something years ago. But still, for the rest of the world, I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? They're going to whip out a T-10. These things are so old that they're monuments at military bases inside of Russia. And they're going to go, oh yes, Bled, this will be the perfect tank to have is a defensive bunker, Bled. You know, like, this is the kind of stupidity that ends up getting folks killed. And, you know, it's been getting people killed throughout the whole war, but what the hell? I don't even know where to go with this anymore, because T-54s were one thing. Whipping out a T-10, that's pretty much just an upgraded IS-3, and some of those were around for the end of the Second World War. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that crazy news, and we're now going to be moving on into Russia, because today we've gotten some additional videos, but I would like to show y'all one first that made me shiver me timbers a little bit, and made me quite fearful of what might be coming down the road, or coming down the pipe in the future. As many of y'all know, the Chechen Kadyrovites are a joke known worldwide. They have been the TikTok warriors of the Russian army, and they're only known for making the cheesiest and fakest of videos to make it look like they're doing something, but in reality, they're not. You wouldn't believe it, but they actually went back to doing that again today. And this video was so fake because they didn't even edit out the part where they said, okay, go at the beginning. So I'm not even going to pause to tell y'all that they said, okay, go. You'll see it. You'll see the whole thing clear as day. And also note the lack of Ukrainian fire coming from the distance in this video. But anyways, here's the clip. Oh man, I'm terrified.
I could have sworn we saw this yesterday.
No, now you're just trying to goad me, man. Like, we did not see this yesterday.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Nope, we did not. There were no Chechens in yesterday's news. And with that, that's the end of that clip. But I gotta say, you just can't make this stuff up. You can't. Like, look, they literally sat there at the beginning of this clip. And we're like, okay, go. They literally had a few seconds of prep at the beginning of this whole clip. I don't even know what's going on anymore with the Chechens. They clearly show, even in their own videos, they're not really there. It's just a whole bunch of faking it. It's sad. It's really sad. These people are so delusional that they're going to take the armed forces of the Chechen Republic in Russia and just use them as like little Hollywood extras and movie stars on a very small scale. And when they actually do get to the front, the very few times they've been there, they get slaughtered to an unbelievable degree. It's usually so bad that even Russian forces around them are like, man, that's mental. And not only that, then Russian forces are scared to be around them because they also have some very Weinsteinish tendencies whenever they're not fighting people and they're around fellow Russian soldiers. So, all in all, pretty sad. Also, what's really sad is that these guys look at their AKs after they shoot them like they're surprised they even fire. Like, watch. So this guy shoots, and then he sits there, and he fiddles around with a fire selector, and then he goes back to firing it again. And look at this guy. This guy is looking at the closed bolt going, well, I cannot believe it's actually working this time, Blade. This is absolutely incredible. Look, what the hell is he doing? He's not even switching around the fire selector or anything. And then this guy does the same thing. I don't, like, this crap is just so fake.
What's he looking up at?
That's the end of the clip. I don't even know what they're looking up at. they're looking up at the imaginary drone they just came up with in their minds to make playtime more interesting. But truly sad from top to bottom. With that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on up into the area north of Moscow and near to Tver. And many of you all know this place because it's become infamous at this point as the area where Prigozhin's jet was shot down. And we are starting to get more footage from this area. Today, Russian recovery efforts are now beginning to remove the wreckage of the aircraft from the surrounding area. And that's also interesting to note as well, and that largely confirms that there will be no official investigation that's properly conducted, because usually they would leave the debris around for some time, maybe a week or two, before they begin to remove it to a hangar. They haven't even cataloged where the debris was found in the countryside. They immediately went out there and started to take it up. So that part of the investigation as to what happened is already done for. If they were wanting to actually launch an official investigation, there will not be one. But here's the video clips of them recovering some of the plane's parts. Well, you see right here a wing. And also, I love the respect being given to the parts. Let's ensure that the crash scene stays the way it should be and has no damage to it, so that way investigators can get the best look at the jet. And then he just throws a piece of the plane onto the wing. Like, yeah, that'll make sure the investigation isn't tampered with. And it appears that this wing sheared off, but what's also insane about this is that the landing gear appears before the plane had even lost the wing to have deployed the landing gear, because it's not just out of the wing for the hell of it. That's actually fixed in place. So it appears that the aircraft had deployed its landing gear for some reason, but we don't know why. But anyways, we're gonna let the video continue. You see him throwing more parts on top of the wing. And we can see him looking at the jet, well, the jet's wing. And we're getting a really good look And once again, I'd like y'all to note that the landing gear is locked in place. Like, it's not just accidentally just sitting upright like that. That landing gear was deployed by the jet before the wing tore off and was locked into place. I'm emphasizing that because that is a little bizarre considering that the plane, before it begun its spiral, was flying at cruising altitude, and from what we understand, at near to top speed, we believe around somewhere around 400 knots or so, and so that would be pretty bizarre, all things considered, to deploy the landing gear of the jet at around 28 to 30,000 feet, going about 400 knots. That usually would be enough to shear the landing gear clean off, yet the landing gear was still deployed. We now see the wing again from a different angle, this time behind the landing gear, wheel well. And we can now see what appears to be maybe the main crash site. They've set up some lights, and they're also carting away some biological remains of the craft. And we can actually see that as far as the main section of the aircraft goes, the fuselage section, it does seem like they're going to be launching a full investigation for that, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can just go around and move the wings, like we just saw, from the locations where they fell, because once again, that's going to tamper with the investigation and its conclusion. That's kind of like messing with a crime scene. It actually is just like messing with a crime scene. We can see them carting away another one. Shoigu! Это надо припасно!
Shoigu! He didn't say Shoigu anymore.
Man, he's not, man. Shoigu is going, Prigozhin! Who's laughing now, blät? And we see them carting away.
Prigozhin, is Shoigu still in his post?
Yeah, he is. He's still the Minister of Defense.
He did get the last laugh then.
And we can see the vertical stabilizer right there. We can also see some damage that was caused to some weird guard tower looking thing. I don't know what that is. Probably part of a house or a compound or something. And we see the vertical stabilizer again. And just silence, just raw silence. Man, the Russians know how to film, you know what I mean? And we can also see that apparently there was already a pre-made memorial for the aircraft on site. So they already had a general idea where they were going down and everything. And there's the vertical stabilizer. We can also see another part of the aircraft unidentified. But you know something that I'm really liking? Is that they're not showing the actual main fuselage part of the aircraft. Of course, they are still removing some remains from the area, but really no pictures have come out of that part of the aircraft, except for one, and it showed visible shrapnel holes that indicate that it was most likely hit by some kind of a missile, whether it be surface-to-air or air-to-air missile. We're not entirely sure at this moment, but there was clearly shrapnel punctures in that fuselage, but they're not really showing that a lot anymore. And so we're now going to be moving on from Russia and make sure that we have no international news. We're now going to be moving on down into the area of Belgrade, or as they call it, Belgrade. This place was famous for the early part of the war because this is where the main bulk of Russian forces pushed across the border and directly towards Kharkiv, and then immediately failed at conducting a siege on Kharkiv and began to lose the battle. And of course have now been pushed all the way back towards the area of Drovchina at the very edge of the Kharkiv Oblast. This is also famous because it's the location of another major deal, the largest Wagner cemetery in the entirety of the Russian Federation. A lot of the Wagner guys ended up being buried inside of the Belgrade Oblast at a specific Wagner-made cemetery. And what's interesting is that a Russian has gone there today, and he's noticed that the Russian government is now going through and they're practically erasing the graves of dead Wagner soldiers and covering it up with either flat roads or just flat plots. But at one point, that area, and we have seen the cemetery before when Prigozhin was there, the same memorial and everything, the entire area was filled with graves. And so this Russian has observed that. This guy's apparently former Wagner or current Wagner, we're not really sure. But he's also noted that a lot of his fellow prison convicts are now no longer represented in the cemetery. This obelisk was opened by Yevgeny Prigozhin in Nikolaevka, and here, where this road is, there were graves. It's all demolished. What are you doing, guys? This is chauvinism. People died for Russia. You compare them with the earth. All the graves. What are you doing? Are you not afraid of God or anything? Man, well, I tell you, I don't know if Prigozhin can answer that question or not anymore, Bled, because, you know, I don't think he ever met him. Here are all the crosses of the guys who died in 2023. Pay attention, guys. 2023, everything is folded here. Wagner's wreaths are all in a pile. And look at this. You can actually see the dirt on the crosses where they had one spin and then they were just plucked up by the Russians and then just thrown into this pile. We don't know what's happened to the bodies. We don't know if they were exhumed and relocated somewhere or if they just built the road right over them. But apparently they're just exhuming graves or just erasing them from existence and starting to clear out the cemetery.
Damn, that's next level messed up.
That is next level messed up. I think they're going to go through trying to erase Wagner from practically everything. It appears that they're even trying to erase them in death, which is just messed up beyond belief. Like, the Russians are messed up, and they have been committing a genocide for the most part. There's about 40 to 50,000 dead Ukrainian citizens in a mass cemetery outside of Mariupol right now. But never before did I think that Russian depravity went so far as they would go and desecrate graves, even if they're Wagner graves, to try and erase something that they don't agree with. That is just next level. That's actually insane. I feel like it would have been less disgraceful if they didn't like the Wagner to just throw them into an unmarked grave than to give them marked graves and then rescind that after it was given to them. That is just messed up beyond compare. And here, where they work, where it was rolled out, here there were graves of the Wagnerians themselves. Here they were, that is, along the Nikolaevskaya cemetery. And now it's just completely empty. Here is not clear what is happening. All the wreaths, the crosses were taken, collected. Here it is not clear what they are doing. Here there were graves. Here now there's a crack. Here there were graves, because there Prigozhin opened the obelisk. And that's the end of the clip, but that shows y'all how messed up and how evil the Russian government is. They got so pissed off with the Wagner due to that attempted coup, they're now even going to erase their graves and their existence at all. That's pretty messed up, and I think, although it's completely detached from the crash of Prigozhin's jet, I would say that's further proof that the Russians did shoot down Prigozhin's jet and did kill him, because they are trying to erase the Wagner in every single way. And of course, the best way to do that is to get rid of their leader. Otherwise, they will still exist in some way, shape, or form, even if it was just Prigozhin, who still was the only remnant of the Wagner. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in Belgrade, and we're now going to be moving on into the area of our location unknowns. And we have a lot of them, but not only do we have a lot of location unknowns, there are a lot of y'all that have been talking in the live chat tonight, just absolute loads. And it's been very interesting, because a lot of y'all have been saying things, of course, about what we just saw with the Wagner grave, and also a lot about what the Ukrainians have been doing in the southern front. And it's all been really interesting stuff. And Matthew has tried to see what all of y'all are thinking on some of the big topics of the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and it's time for our first poll segment of the night. And our first poll says, Russia says it has recovered the black boxes from Prigozhin's downed jet. And what are your thoughts? 89%, the overwhelming majority, said we will never know the contents. 6% said unsure. 2% said, I don't think Russia can tamper with it, and 3% said, good, we will now learn the truth. And something that I'm not clear about regarding the black boxes is who can read the materials inside, because I think, from what I've heard in the past, that only the manufacturer of the black boxes can actually decode what's in it, which leads to the ability to protect it from tampering. But I may be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But I have a feeling we'll never know the contents. I think the Russians are going to lock those boxes up. And if they do learn something, they're not going to let anybody know. And there's also the possibility they might not even look inside the boxes to begin with, because they know exactly what happened already. But Enforcer, what happened? What happened?
What happened?
What do you think?
What happened? What's going on around there? But anyways,
Wah, wah, wah.
But to answer on my end, I think that we're never going to hear what really is on the black boxes. I think if anything, they're going to fabricate a tape, because it would be incredibly easy to do that. You know, you just get some black box-esque sounding background noise, and then just have two pilots go, "Hey, what is going on?" You know, and then just record that and send it out. You could have two FSB guys do that and just give them a script. I don't think we're ever going to hear what really happened on those tapes, because it's very clear at this point, whatever happened to that jet was explosive, whether it was a bomb in the plane or if it was a missile hitting the plane, there would be clear evidence presented in the black box of that. So they're most likely going to tamper with it, or we're never going to hear about the black boxes beyond this point. That would be my opinion on that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one says, Peskov claims today that Russia never funded the Wagner Group and claims they never existed. And what are your thoughts? 94% said Russia can't keep their lies straight. 1% said unsure. 1% also said partially true but mainly false. And 3% said it's true and Putin lied. And this one's pretty straightforward, and it looks like 94% said this. Russia cannot keep their lies straight. And with Peskov saying something totally different than Putin said, with Putin saying about, I don't know, months ago, that they funded the Wagner Group and that's why they wanted all their equipment back. And now you have Peskov saying they never funded them. And in fact, Wagner never even existed. It never was there. It's really unbelievable he'd even try to propagate a lie like that because it's so unbelievable. But obviously, they're not keeping their lives straight. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I think that it's a little bizarre, you know, because I don't want to sound cliche, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this and not be cliche, but isn't that literally 1984? Like, with what they're doing right there, they're just going to deny that someone even existed or something even existed at all?
1984, everybody had an IQ of like 20 because everybody heard what they said before, and now he's saying something absolutely left field, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, but you know how it is, Matthew. I mean, someone says something, people usually throw logic out of the window, and if that's what the Russians start going with, people will say that the Wagner never really even existed. They'll probably come up with some excuse like, oh, it was just a rogue unit in the Russian army or something like that. That's probably what they'll try and push at this point, because if Peskov is starting that push, it's probably one that will begin to spread throughout the whole Russian government by some point, and they'll just act like the Wagner never even officially existed. But what's insane about that is that we know it did. It's not like it's something that can be questioned. Hell, they just sat there the other day on Russian state TV, it was just 2 days ago, and said the leader of the Wagner PMC was killed in a crash with a commercial jet. You know, how in the hell can he lead something that doesn't even technically exist according to the Russians? You know, it's that kind of insane crap and stupid logic that makes the Russians the Russians. And I don't know if the Russian public would even buy into that, because Prigozhin was such a focal legend for a good part of this war. It's like you can't even really deny this guy's existence. It would be like denying that George Washington existed in U.S. history. That's how important Prigozhin is in the modern world for the Russians. So, you know, unless you're wanting to go and just try and change history and act like everyone's going to forget everything, it probably won't work well. But the Russian government doesn't really care. They'll probably still try and push that story at some point, some way, somehow, to its completion until they think everyone believes it. But with that,
I personally wouldn't be shocked if they're trying to rewrite history in that regard, like that severely, that if they basically outlaw anyone saying anything about the Wagner Group ever existing or anything around Prigozhin whatsoever. I wouldn't be shocked if they implemented something like that.
They probably will, because you have to remember they did institute a gag order on the press a while ago when things were getting a little heated with the Wagner before the coup even happened, that they couldn't say anything about the Wagner for a set period of time. Otherwise, their news companies would be fined or their reporters would be put in jail. I believe they will probably do something like that on Russian media, but they're probably not going to do that on an individual citizen level. They're probably just going to let it disappear on the citizen level because the news won't be talking about it, so it won't be on the public's focus anymore. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and let me get rid of a Russian bot real quick. I just saw one right here coming in with that cope. We don't have that cope here, and I don't think they have cope cages here either. We don't sell those here. But anyways, moving on to our first super chat, we have a $20 donation from Oda P. And thank you very much, Oda, for that very generous support. And he said Oda approves, and we give him hell, sir.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for saying that this is Oda approved. And also, I know when that super chat came in, it was right after that speech where we said that we were going to keep this stream running until the very end of the war. And I gotta thank you so much for backing us up on that and supporting us so that way we can keep this thing running. Because folks like you are the only thing that make this channel possible, so that way the Enforcer channel and the Lee Spring Army can continue to give the Russians hell, at least as far as, well, as best as we can, in realms of practicality. Because it's amazing to know that folks like you find this channel to be worthwhile enough to support, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to run this stream the way we do, ad-free and sponsor-free. The Lee Spring Army wouldn't have been able to form the way it did, and we wouldn't be able to be who we are on stream. This wouldn't have existed the way it did. And I gotta thank you so much once again, Oda, for approving it and giving it the Oda stamp of approval. And so, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Rasmus Westham, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Rasmus, for that support as well. He says, "Oh, nice. I'm awake late enough to catch the Enforcer live for the first time in 5 months. And question from the chat, please, and keep up the good coverage."
And dang, 5 months. That was a bit of a dry spell, but welcome back to the live stream. And also, really nice to hear that you were finally up late enough to watch the show. That's something of a bit of an issue with a lot of American viewers, is that usually the show is so late, because it starts at 9, that apparently most people go to sleep at that time. I actually think that's kind of wild, because even before I started running these streams, I usually stay up till like 11 or 12. But then I heard today that a good amount of people go to sleep at like 9. And I was like, man, I wish I was one of those people, like getting a good amount of sleep. But still, I mean, we have to run this show, and I'm glad to know that you were able to join us tonight. And it makes it all the worthwhile running these streams, knowing that so many of y'all come on here and we all gather around to hear the news and to cheer on Ukraine in this war. And so, thank you so much for being here with us again tonight, Rasmus, and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And we will make sure to get a chat question, and we will try to keep up the good coverage. We try our best. Of course, support like that helps us to actually take care of the business side of things, like being able to pay bills and keep doing this. And so that's a massive help for us. And so thank you so much once again. And let's get that live chat.
And the live chat question goes to Riddle Me This, who says, "Have you and the Enforcer heard about the Wagner Merc that was arrested in Finland and is facing charges for his war crimes in 2014, and Ukraine supposedly already filed for extradition?"
No, I have not heard about that at all, actually. I haven't heard a single thing about that. I'd have to declare ignorance on that at this moment. So, sadly, I think we're just going to have to move on from that question. I don't want it to be a cop-out, though. So, Mandy, could we grab a second live chat so that way we can actually hopefully answer one?
Yes, and this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, "I'm seeing in the chat that Moscow's on fire and may have been hit with S-200 ordnance, and have you heard anything about that?"
Sadly, no. We haven't heard about any...
I have.
Oh?
I've heard that they shut down the Moscow airports. Now, that would corroborate the story, but I don't know exactly where it was hit.
Well, I actually didn't hear about that at all before the news began tonight, and I have a feeling that if they were hit, it probably would have been all over the place, because usually whenever Moscow's hit, even in a small degree, it is all over the place and very easy to find. But I didn't find anything about it before this news ran, and the last bit of news we put on this map was put up 50 minutes before the stream went live, so it's incredibly recent news. There was only about a 50-minute gap where that could have happened before the stream went live. So, unfortunately, I haven't heard about an attack on Moscow that has been successful at this point. We did see yesterday, however, that some Ukrainian S-200 missiles were shot down in the area of the Kaluga Oblast. But beyond that, we don't have any other information about S-200s making their way towards Moscow or hitting it. And so with that, I hope that does kind of address that one fairly well, at least with the information I have. But if that did happen, it will be included in tomorrow's news, because it most likely has happened during tomorrow's news segment, which starts around the same time this stream begins. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving right back into the news.
All right, and this one goes to ABCD, who puts in a $20 donation themselves, and thank you very much, ABCD, for being a longtime channel viewer and always supporting the channel. And they said, "Hello, Enforcers, hello, LSA, and I hope you're having a great time in law school, and this is a contribution to the Coffee Fund."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, ABCD, ABCD. It sounds like a Michael Jackson song, ABC, 1, 2, 3, but anyways, thank you so much for being with us tonight, ABCD. You are also a channel legend and an absolute old guard, and I gotta thank you so much for being here with us tonight and of course helping to support this channel and helping to keep on running. And we are having a really good time in law school. It's just that I got bushed today, absolutely worn out. I don't know what it was about today either, because it wasn't like an extraordinarily difficult day as far as they've come, but it was just like, it was soul-sucking today. I don't even know how to describe it. I came home and I was just exhausted, just absolutely bushed. Of course, I disguised that really well with a lot of coffee before the stream, but man, I don't know what it was today. I was just so tired. Beyond that, though, it's been great. Like, it's been really fun. The professors are really good. Like, you know, they cover very interesting topics, very interesting subjects. The reading's interesting. You know, and also the people at law school are pretty neat as well. I think some of them may be in our live chat right now, or maybe watching the stream. I was actually told today by a few kids at school that they are watching the stream. It's just that I never see them in the live chat. But still, it's going fairly good. We haven't actually talked about that a lot on stream, but we've been doing that in the background for about 2 weeks. It's actually been exactly 2 weeks as of right now. It's been 2 whole weeks in law school. The readings are pretty considerable. You know, it takes up a lot of time, and largely at this point, my free time has been cut down to about maybe 20 minutes a day each day during the weekdays, and about 2 hours on each day of the weekend, because, you know, there's so much reading involved. But beyond that, can't really complain. You know, it's exactly what I thought law school would be like. And it's also incredibly interesting as well. I mean, nobody tells you how interesting case law is. You know, some people act like it's boring, but it's really interesting when you get into it, because this is a story. And of course, I'm a history nerd, so I'm always into the stories. It's the story of how our laws exist today for the most part, and how that stands. And it's just so cool to look at, because you can see, like, from the 1300s, which is like the earliest case we've read, all the way up until about the late 1700s. And you know what I'm talking about, Matthew. The actual, like, cases and their case briefs were incredibly short. Like, you know, they were like maybe 2 paragraphs long or something like that.
Like the ones you're making?
No. Like the actual cases we're reading.
I mean, like the opinions?
Yeah, the opinions. I forgot what it's called. I'm tired. But anyways, the opinions are not that long. But then you get into, like, the 1800s, and then the opinions are like 9 pages long. And then you get into the modern day, and the opinions are like 3 pages long. I don't know what happened in the 1800s, but people felt like they had to write autobiographies in the opinions at that point.
Man. I'm telling you, the language is all conflated and confusing, because they didn't know really how to write back then. Or if they did know how to write, they were trying to make it purposefully confusing, so that way the average person couldn't read it. But it's confusing even today.
Dude, I'd sit there and read those from, like, the 1800s, and the judge would be like, "As a boy, I used to enjoy sailing." It's like, what does that have to do? And then he'll sit there and talk about sailing. You see, the cut of the jib is the most important thing, and that is why I think that the accused is guilty of murder, and the judgment is affirmed. Death sentence applied. And it's like, whoa! It's like, wait a minute, man. How the hell did I go from boats to death? And I'm just kidding. There's no case like that. I'm just trying to come up with one out of thin air, but yeah, you know, it's been fun. That's what I could say about it, but it is tiresome. But one thing that I'm always happy to do while I stutter my way through this and act like I can't even talk, one thing I'm always happy about is being able to get onto the stream, because it's like therapy. It's like unwinding a little bit for me, and I'm so happy to do this. This is the best thing that I've ever done in my life so far. Of course, I'm just proud to bits of every single one of y'all in the Lee Spring Army and what the channel's been able to do. And also, you know, beyond that, hell, I'm still having a great time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, ABCD. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of that question segment and on into our location unknowns. Starting off with our first bit, where we saw a Czech-provided coupe. Look at it. It's Czech.
Nice. Those missiles are way too big for that thing. Like, it looks like it's out of place.
Yeah, but you know something, Matthew? You know, I used to have a friend from the Czech Republic. You know that? There was a foreign exchange student at our high school that used to be from the Czech Republic.
You talking about the guy who's now in Ukraine?
No. It was a whole other guy. And, you know, like, I actually ended up becoming good friends with him. And you see, I would always say that he was my checkmate.
Oh dear. Okay.
There was no check foreign exchange, dude. It's cool. I just came up with that on spot.
Oh
Anyways,
damn, man! I'm sitting here thinking I'm going berserk crazy. I'm
Dude.
like, how come I can't remember this? I'm so tired. My brain's like losing brain cells. Or
dude,
something.
I'm not gonna lie, man. You sound so tired that you sound drunk.
Oh,
Like, you're sitting there-
I'm suffering over here. Like I am like literally suffering tonight. I
like-
can't even pull it together.
man, like you.
I'm telling you.
I'll be sitting there and you'll be like, so what's going on over here? And I'm like, he is tired, man. Like he is bushed. But anyways. Moving on from that, great to see that they got a coup. And moving into our next coup, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were using the Stugna today as well. And so here's the clip. This was also put out by Radio Free Europe. And we haven't seen from them in a long time. Stitch. That's a Stitch. Dude, that guy, I want a friend that is as hyped up as that guy was watching that Russian tank get hit. That was hype. My civilian job was a firefighter, but my commander saw a different sort of potential in me. More like the opposite of a firefighter. So an arsonist. I like to watch tanks burn. I can't get enough of it. Uh-oh. We have an arsonist in the making. I'm just kidding. This guy loves his job, and why not? He's doing a great job at it. The unit estimates it puts $20 million worth of Russian tanks out of action. The team has destroyed as many as 5 targets in one day. Using old-school tripod launchers aided by modern drones and guidance systems. This is a monitoring panel. It has a screen like a TV and a control panel. You know, usual Stugna business. I can see it as a tank. Some 4,000 Russian tanks have been lost, according to the Ukrainian military. We can see one being lost right there on film. And another one. Along with 8,000 armed vehicles, which are APCs, armored cars, stuff like that. The unit reported 12 successful target strikes near Bakhmut recently. Dude, this video is literally like casual interview. Like, this guy's like, I love my job. It's absolutely great. And they go on to the clip and it's like, come on, Ukraine! Score some freaking goals! It's like, dang, it's like absolute flip of energy. And we can see them. Yeah, he said BMP. And we can see some tanks as well along the tree line. The Oryx open source intelligence site estimates around 2,000 Russian tanks have been destroyed, according to picture evidence. There are more than that. The lower estimates based on losses verifiable with images. There's a Russian tank, and we see the Stugna firing. I'm the person who takes a missile and runs to the Stugna. So he's the loader, and replaces the spent one with a new one. I'm just glad when the job is done. There's no euphoria. Did this guy just really say that after we've seen clip after clip of whenever they hit a tank, they act like they just scored a goal in like a soccer game? Like it's like there is euphoria. I see nothing except the targets that must be destroyed. The anti-tank team is a high-value target for the Russians. And they're not lying, they really are. They cause a lot of damage. Firemen underwent major surgery for combat injuries to internal organs, most likely from overpressure due to a shell landing nearby. I saw that my belly was cut up and 4 tubes were sticking out of it, and my thought was, what did they take out? It's such a mess, just like when my dentist pulled out the wrong tooth. Whoa, hey, wait a minute.
Dentist pulled out the wrong tooth. What the hell?
Dude, yikes, man, I wouldn't want that dentist. Alright, we're here to pull out your tooth. Well, we're gonna have to reschedule you. Pulled out the wrong one. You're gonna have to come back.
He said it so casually too, like it's no big deal.
Dude, this guy's like, yeah, I got my guts nearly blown out and the wrong tooth pulled out, but hey, I still got a Gatorade. It's like, you know, it's like everything's fine. He could have been discharged, but chose to rejoin the team. Dude, I almost flipped, man. I thought that was that new SIG Spear right there with that rail on the front of it. I was like, what the? But no, it's just an AK-74.
Yeah, those rails are very close to it.
And that's the end of the clip, but the story of another great, amazing Stugna crew. We are going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we also saw a drunk Russian. This is just being shown just to show y'all a drunk Russian because it's kind of a normal thing in the Russian army, and they have a massive disciplinary issue with drunk Russians. No joke. And we can see, here we can see the plastered Russian in his morning routine of leaning on trees and scantily walking into the road. We can now see him trying to conduct a forward walk, which appears to be
that gritty.
quite difficult for the Russian. At the same time, does anyone notice that this man looks a lot like FPS Russia from YouTube fame?
Oh no, it's FPS Kyle. He actually ended up in Russia.
It's FPS Russia, and this time he's not having a seed of marijuana, he's having an entire bottle of Stolochna. My man my man just slapped into the ground like a nice piece of meat. Let's listen to that again. Wonderful.
Wipe it off.
We can now see them picking him up as he continues to soldier on in his Croc Adidas kind of sandals. He's now making it back towards the camp, where they are now going to drop him down the stairs so he can continue to break his bones.
That dude is blasted.
This man here, call him a stormtrooper because not only can he not aim, he is also completely plastered. And here we can see the relative of Popeye the Sailor, also known as Vadim the Boatman, as he's wearing the Popeye the Sailor hat. Actually, it's a beanie. I'm strong to the finish because I drink my vodka.
You have a spinach blat.
Dude, he does not eat spinach, man. You know this man ain't
No.
eating spinach. He eating that cabbage. He's eating that cabbage, and he's drinking that freaking straight up rock gut, man. Dude, this is a sight to behold, man. And I also like how the Russian-issued boots are so damn bad. Half of everyone isn't wearing boots. They're just wearing, like, tennis shoes. Like, that's how bad
I'm
their
trying to get a
boots are.
grasp on it here. Those look like those, those rubber boots they sell at Walmart for, like, farm work and stuff like that.
Yeah, the rain boots.
Yeah, that's like what the ones on the right are. And those over there on the left look like tennis shoes. Can't tell really what those look like. I see some Adidas over there on the far left.
Suka,
There's two stripes, though. That's not the Adidas I know.
It's a Bibus. It's not Adidas, it's a Bibus. And then what the hell this is here? This is like flat-footed extreme. Like, there's no, like, curvature to that sole. It's just flat-footed. But this was a sight to behold for just a video of some Russians. But moving on to the next one, we can also see the Ukrainian soldiers having a good time. We finally found the clip of the truck. It was supposed to be in the Robotyne area, but then it wasn't. But here they all are, riding in the back of the truck, of course, joking, laughing, and the morale is, of course, high.
Wait, was that helicopter song?
I don't think so. Are you talking about the one that goes, helicopter, helicopter? No, that's not it. Yeah, see, that's not it.
Oh, man, I thought it was. I was getting excited for a minute.
Dude, you're so out of it that you're about to pass out over there. You're like, is that the freaking helicopter song, man? Like, I'm about to go off, man. But when you see them here all joking, laughing, smiling, waving to the camera, having a good time. Their morale is up there. I'm losing my words myself, but hey, they're happy. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, and great to see that Ukrainian morale is still high. Moving on from that and into our next bit of Location Unknown news, we also got to see some very interesting pictures. The Ukrainians are showing that they actually have physical decoys. All of these pictures that we're looking at right here, like these D-20s, this M777, this radar installation, and the last one, this Tor missile system, it appears, every single one of them is a fake. They're all decoys made out of different parts of materials, like, maybe a steel pipe and some timbers, and they make these very uncanny looking replicas of the real deal. And the point of these is to make their forces look larger in some areas, and to also cause these to be hit instead of the actual artillery pieces that may be a couple of miles away that are actually operating against Russian positions. And it's pretty wild to see the amount of detail that they put into these decoys. All of these are decoys, and they look like the real deal. And this is a decoy. Also looks a lot like the real deal. And the reason why you can tell that this thing is a decoy is because there are certain things that are missing on this M777 that you would see on a real one. For example, the artillery sights, which are completely devoid on the Sim 777. A normal one would have that. Also, the radar system. This one is also a fake. I can't even begin to describe how this one is a fake, but it's included in the decoy picture set, and we can also see the tour, but it's the area is pixeled out for operational security reasons. Still, pretty cool to see that they have decoys, you know, because it's kind of been a bit of a rumor beyond the Leopard tanks that there were decoys for other kinds of weapon systems, and yet they do have them, and apparently they are soaking up some hits here and there and saving Ukrainian artillery pieces and other equipment from being destroyed. Moving on from that, we also saw the Russian casualty report for the day. And it was a pretty good one. 470 Russian troops lost, 10 armored personnel carriers, 17 supply trucks, 3 tanks, 28 artillery pieces, 12 drones, 1 MLRS, 3 cruise missiles, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and the one Bobcat.
Let's go!
An old Soviet Bobcat. It just gets blown away. But wonderful to see that the Ukrainians are inflicting pretty good casualties on the Russian forces, because as they continue to inflict these high casualties, the Russian armed forces become weaker and weaker, and hopefully the Ukrainians will be able to push the Russians out and end the war somewhat soon. Moving on from that little casualty report there, we're now going to be moving on into the front lines themselves. We didn't get any news today in video or picture evidence from the northeastern front, but moving on into Bakhmut, there was a lot of news today. Starting off near Lysychansk, we got to see that a Russian mortar was hit in this area today. We can see the Russian mortar. We can also hear some kind of metal or rock music playing, and we can now see the Ukrainians sighting it on in for the low battery warning. And here comes low battery going right into the mortar position that was set up in one of the most obvious places in the entire town, and we now see it slam right into the mortar, taking it out. Very nice. And so that is gone, and good and gone. Yeah, I'm running out of words to use tonight. We're going to be moving on from that area and down into the direction of Bakhmut, where we saw in the northern direction, and also really quickly, let me give you all a frontline update, just in case if Deep State UA did update the front, and it appears that they have not. We have been able to confirm that Ukrainian forces have been fighting in this area and have apparently taken ground today. That was confirmed on film, where we saw them advancing into the open and taking more ground in some other tree lines, but it doesn't appear that that's been reflected on the Deep State UA map yet. However, in the Solidar area, we did see that the 30th Brigade was able to destroy some Russian artillery. Chad music ensues, and drone attacks also ensue as well. We can see that the 30th Brigade's choice target at the beginning of this clip were D-20s, and we can now see that they're going to destroy a camera, a orc camera. We can see the drone hitting it and then blowing it on up. We can also see that they have taken this old industrial smokestack and have turned this thing into the equivalent of an AT&T relay station. There are so many electronic warfare systems on this tower, it may as well be some kind of a phone relay or something. But we're about to see this thing get knocked on out. Right there, actually. Well, look at that. Jaga Blitz! Igor! And we can also see it happening a second time. In case you all are wondering, why in the world did I have to yell at that point? I'm trying to make sure that Matthew stays awake. We can see another D20 there, getting hit. And we can see a third electronic warfare antenna in Bakhmut also being hit as well. That's the end of the clip, but of course, great to see that Russian forces were knocked on out. Moving on from that and into our next clip near Vasukivka, we also saw that the 92nd Brigade was on the move. And we got to see some of the equipment that is used within the 92nd Brigade. And I got to tell you, Matthew, it's some pretty high-end stuff, blad. Take a look.
Expensive, blad.
BTR-4, blad. Very nice, very high-tech. We can also see a T-80UD back there. That's kind of rare, actually. And we can see another BTR-4. Have you noticed, Matthew, that the BTR-4s have become so much more common as the war has gone on?
Yes.
That is because they are actually continuing to upgrade BTRs and convert them into BTR-4s as the war has gone on. So most of Ukraine's BTRs have been replaced, so they don't have anything in between the BTR-60 and the BTR-4 anymore. It's largely just BTR-60s, which are entirely for just transporting troops, and then there's the BTR-4s, which have a pretty chunky main gun. It's a pretty beefy one, and not only that, they have the additional ATGM launchers on some of the turrets. But we can see that BTR-4 rolling on by, and we can even see some more main battle tanks from the 92nd Brigade up there.
What does BTR stand for?
BTR, I actually would not know exactly what it stands for, because BMP stands for some like Broche Motorizant, it's something like that. It's like, it means something like an armored personnel carrier, but I don't know what BTR stands for. Let's Google that, actually. That's a great question, Matthew, and something deserving of a rabbit hole. What is a BTR? A BTR.
Big tank Ruski.
So, in Russian, that translates directly to Bronetransporter, which in English is Brona Transporter, which literally means armored transporter. That's it. So that's what BTR stands for. It's an armored transporter.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you know, they weren't really ever creative with the naming metrics of the armored vehicles of the Russian army or the Soviet military. They just called crap pretty basic names, but still, really high-tech stuff we're starting to see in the 92nd Brigade. It went from having almost nothing but BTR-60s to now they have almost nothing but BTR-4s to make up their armored personnel carrier forces, and they also have some pretty nice main battle tanks as well, more modern T-80s. With that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip in the northern flank, and now moving on into the area of Dubovo-Vasilivka, as we saw that the Presidential Brigade in this area was able to get some long shots and wipe out some Russian soldiers. At over 1,000 meters away, mind you. When you see the Russian right there in the distance, and when you see the sniper's crosshairs jiggling around a good bit as the sniper is most likely trying to line up a shot. And remember, it's just a camera shot. We can see him fire. And I don't see the Russian anymore. I think he took a nap. We now see him looking around through the scope once more. And we can see what appears to be another Russian right there. Oh, bled. He's disappeared. Oh, there he is again. And oh, Matthew, I thank you so much. I know you're tired, but you are doing a great duty and a great service to make sure that the political people who act like they're making a stand for something that hasn't been stood for a million times, at least today, are not going to be on the stream doing it. Thank you so much, because I saw that, and I was about to get them, and then you got them before I could. But with that, that's the end of this
clip. It was a political post?
Yeah, it was political. They were talking about some person from somewhere running for some position and how they were going to do some crap for taxes and stuff. We don't talk about that on this channel. We're politically neutral. The rule is that the live chat is also politically neutral as well. You either support Ukraine or you don't support Ukraine and you're not watching the show. We don't get into American politics. We don't get into
I thought they were spreading something about another channel or something. I was like, they did that for the second time. They got to go. I didn't even know it was political.
Oh, no, they were talking about some... I'm not even going to get into it because what they said was political, but I was like, man, I'm going to have to get rid of them for the political crap, and then you banned them anyway. So I was like, oh, hey! I was like, look at that. It was already taken care of. But moving on past the area of Bakhmut City, as nothing happened directly assaulting the town today, we are now going to be moving into the southern flank where most of the offensive actions of Ukrainian ground forces have been conducted over the past day. So moving on to our first clip just outside of Klishkivka, we saw the 3rd Brigade, of course, conducting their heavy trench-to-trench fighting.
Всем привет. Это видео я называю «Два трофейных калаша».
We see the 3rd Brigade soldier moving through the area. He's now in the back of a MRAP or an APC. You can't really tell. That is certainly an APC. We now see that they've now been engaged in the firefight. We hear a machine gunner laying down some fire, but it doesn't sound like a large firefight has picked up yet. Oh, man, dude, this guy sat there and he pulled off the quick draw, man. He was just walking. He's like, let's see, don't see anything yet. And he was like, oh, open hole. He was like, quick, open fire. Dude, he was quick.
Man, he did that Call of Duty like inventory swap thing.
Yeah, dude, he's out there and pulled up the dial menu where you spin around and pick your weapon. That's what he did. But we now see him continuing to move through the trench works. We now see that he's got a machine gun. We now hear a firefight going on somewhat strong, bullets popping over his head, and we now see him firing the machine gun down the length of the tree line. We also hear a round whiz right overhead and explode somewhere in the background. We now hear the firefight continuing to pick up. We can see the machine gunner standing by, and now he's firing off a few shots here and there. We now see them supporting a Ukrainian soldier as he lobs a grenade down the tree line. Grenade explodes, and it sounds like fire from the Russians has largely ceased. But they're going to make sure to lob a few shots down that way to just make sure.
ПКМ!
We now see him firing with the machine gun again down the trench line. Sadly, he wasn't able to get a good posting for the machine gun, so it's moving around a good bit as he fires off the bursts. We now hear the fire whizzing right overhead again and an explosion occurring in front of him. We don't know from what. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but an extra bit of footage showing the Ukrainians continuing the fight. We are now going to be moving on into our next clip, but really quickly, I am going to have to say this, because this is a rare exception. I think we're going to have to kind of accelerate the speed of the news here for a quick moment, because I've got to be quite honest with y'all, I think we're both largely at our wits' end energy-wise right now, and I hate to say that, because we don't like to be negative as far as our energy goes on stream, but I hope everyone understands, because we have had an incredibly long week, and today has also been incredibly tiresome. So we're going to be continuing through the news a little bit quicker here. We're actually going to skip a clip or two. Y'all can always check them out, though.
You know what, to give people context so they know that we're not wimping out? We actually got up this morning, or at least I did, at 5:30, and I've been up ever since, going all day long. And we do that each and every single day throughout the day. So I know some folks are going to say, man, that's wimpy. But I'm telling you, I'm telling you, you gotta work this schedule and you'll feel it.
Listen,
it's going to put a whooping on you.
Listen, I don't care if anyone says it's wimpy, because every single time I say the schedule to someone in person, they go, oh my God, how in the world are you going to get through law school doing that? You are going to mentally collapse at some point. So I know that it's not a normal schedule. It's a pretty insane one. So I hope that everyone understands that we are exhausted. And I also thank everyone for understanding in advance, because I know that y'all get it, because it has been a very long week. And not only is Matthew quite tired, as y'all have been telling, I'm also very tired. It's just that I have a really good way of hiding it under a very pepped up voice. Some of y'all may be able to tell because I'm stuttering a lot tonight. I'm not really on my A game. But moving on from that and into our next clip behind Odradivka, we also saw that a Russian supply truck was blown away in that part of the front lines as well. Chad music ensues. Oh, bled! When you see the supply truck moving down the street and then being slammed. We now see the Russians bailing out of the truck after it was hit. And that's the end of the clip. But wonderful to see the Ukrainians are still destroying Russian supplies behind the lines, and of course ensuring that Russian forces there will be having a very tough time. We're now going to be moving on from the area of the southern Bakhmut flank. We're going to be skipping two clips. Both of them are largely showing trench assaults and the 3rd Brigade clearing positions. It's somewhat similar to the first one. If y'all want to watch those clips, although we won't be covering them on stream, make sure to go to the link in the description below to the Day 548 map. It's custom made on the stream every single day, and you can go and click on all of the links on the map and watch them at your own pace. You don't even have to, well, you know, I hate to say this because I want y'all to watch the stream and be here with us because we love to have y'all around with us as we cover the news. But you can look at this at your own pace. You could even just hop on the stream, get the map, and then hop off if you wanted to, and just look at what we put out on the map today. But moving on from that, we're now going to be moving down into the direction of Marinka to the only clip we got from the Donetsk front today, where we saw that Russian forces had been hit around the area of Marinka. It says Marinsky, but we looked for a Marinsky, and the only Marinsky there is north of Zaporizhia, which is physically impossible. We can now see the Russian tank moving through the area and then getting slammed, going up into a fireball. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there, and absolutely great to see that the Russians lost another main battle tank inside of Marinka. We're now going to be moving all the way back to the southern front. We've gone full circle now, and we're now going to be covering a little bit of what's happened at Velika Novosilka today. The Ukrainians, of course, have inflicted casualties on the Russian forces, but probably the most important ones are the two trench-digging systems that have ended up being destroyed as they've been trying to build impromptu defensive positions outside of Zaytovo-Bozhanya and also Staromanivka. We can see one of those trench-digging systems right there. It appears to be an excavator on the back of a Ural, and we can also see another one based on a KAMAZ down here. Both of them will end up being destroyed. We see the first one being hit right there. And we now see two Russians going, Oblat, call the mechanic. Look at them, man. They were booking it.
Oh,
Watch.
mechanic in Russia, bliat.
Watch this. Look at this, man. You watch. Here they come. Call the mechanic. The head's leaking. And then you can see the other one being hit, and both of them knocked out. With that, that's the end of the clip, but great to see the two trench digging systems destroyed. Beyond that, there hasn't been a lot of frontline movement in this area. It appears that the Ukrainians may be regrouping to prepare for the maneuver around Zaytovo-Bozhanya, but at this moment, nothing really major has happened there. But moving on from the area, and moving all the way over to Kherson, we did hear today that apparently a Russian commander has had to go into mental rehab for some reason. So let me read this to y'all, and this is the reason. Kherson region, Russia, 205th Brigade. Right now, our boys are crumbling on the island. Everything you can. Guys give goals, video goals, no one works. The guys identify targets, lead, send coordinates, but the information does not go beyond the head of intelligence. The company commander with the soldiers tried to advance to evacuate the guys, but they were stopped. The company commander was sent to a psychiatric hospital by force under the pretext there was no one there. The whole company stood up for the company commander, and now they're being threatened with criminal charges. Two more commanders who supported were closed. The guys were brought to the island yesterday afternoon, right under fixation by the enemy. The brigade commander is afraid to report the current situation to the top. A little bit of a whole story going on there, with a whole, drama arc. But, of course, the chaos is typically Russian. We're going to be moving on from that. We're not going to be showing the other clip. It just shows Russian soldiers mutinying over no pay. Y'all have seen that like a million times. It's just another unit doing it because they're not getting paid. But with that, we are now going to be moving on to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. I'd also like to make this clear as well, really quickly, is that we will be addressing the super chats and some live chats after the speech ends. While we are trying to speed up the way this news is being covered tonight, I also want to make sure that we thank everyone who supports the channel, because y'all make it possible for us to be on air, and we greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all. And we also want to make sure to address live chats as well. The premise of this channel has always been that it is completely free to watch, especially the streams. The videos have had to fall under a different metric because for some reason they don't get pushed if we don't run ads. So then we have to run ads on them for anyone to even view them. But with the streams, they're absolutely free. You can click on these and not pay a cent if you don't want to. You don't even have to pay a cent of your time to watch this stream. All you have to do is click on it and sit down. The only way we keep the stream running and this channel running is through y'all's support. And I always want y'all to know that we are greatly appreciative to every single person who supports the channel, because y'all are what makes it possible for us to run everything behind the scenes, to be live on air each and every day. And so we will, of course, be covering the super chats and the live chats as well, because that is what we must do. And so with that, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on the 548th day of the war. And so, without further ado, here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Короткий звіт за цей день. Усі домовленості, які ми привезли додому від наших партнерів, вже почали реалізовувати. Передусім літаки F-16. Завдання очевидні. Міжнародники – це максимальне розширення тренувальних місій, військові – максимальне прискорення підготовки інфраструктури, відправлення пілотів, інженерів, повне забезпечення готовності України. І всі разом максимальне наближення моменту, коли F-16 допоможуть нам тримати подалі російських терористів. Провів сьогодні нараду за підсумками візитів, тривалу нараду, питання координації саме по літаках, підготовка нових оборонних пакетів, саме з таким наповненням, яке потрібно нашим воїнам і про яке вони мені говорили, коли відвідував фронт. Готуємо і нові наші міжнародні заходи на осінь, нові кроки у відносинах з партнерами, які мають посилити Україну. Осінь буде насиченою з точки зору нашої дипломатії. До речі, вчора вже пізно ввечері провів розмову з президентом США Байденом. Хороша розмова. Подякував за привітання з Днем Незалежності. Обговорили, як ще посилимо свободу і маємо нову вагому домовленість. Америка долучиться до підготовки пілотів та інженерів F-16. В цьому та інших напрямках будуть ще новини. Дякую. Прийняв сьогодні у Києві міністра закордонних справ Туреччини. Важлива зустріч. Це і безпековий компонент, і наша спільна дипломатична робота, і принципові гуманітарні речі, які робимо разом. Зокрема, це звільнення наших людей з російського полону. Говорили про формулу миру та підготовку глобального саміту миру, про ситуацію, яка склалася через підлі російські удари по зерновому експорту в Чорноморському регіоні. Очевидно, що це удари по глобальній безпеці. Прораховані, націлені на провокацію криз в різних регіонах планети. І разом з Туреччиною ми можемо крок за кроком безпеку повертати, що вже неодноразово доводили. Вірю, зробимо разом ще більше. Вже готуємось до наступного тижня. Будуть деякі спеціальні внутрішньополітичні наради, вони вже заплановані, щодо законодавчих рішень. Те, що точно убезпечить нашу державу від усіх, хто намагається послабити її, хто думає, на жаль, не про Україну, хоч і займає посади в державній системі. Сила України не має альтернатив. Звичайно, наші воїни. Десантники, 80-ки, які потужно б'ються на Бахмутському напрямку, 68-ма окрема єгерська бригада, яка знищує окупантів на Лиманському напрямку, 12-та бригада оперативного призначення Національної гвардії, яка дає потрібні Україні результати на Кремінському напрямку. Дякую вам. 46-та окрема аеромобільна бригада ДШВ. Дякую за вашу міць на Оріхівському напрямку. 59-та окрема мотопіхотна бригада – це Донецький напрямок. Це дуже ефективні. Дякую. І наші ракетники. 27-ма реактивна артилерійська бригада імені отамана Калнишевського та 107-ма реактивна артилерійська Кременчуцька бригада. Дякую вам, воїни, за особливу влучність на Запорізькому напрямку. Слава усім, хто б'ється та працює заради України. Слава Україні!
Героям слава! And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that is the end of the halftime show as well. It is now time for us to get into the much-anticipated second part of the stream. And so, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so moving on to our final poll and question segment of the night, we have one poll to address. And it says, deploying F-16 jets will change the counteroffensive, quote-unquote, radically, says a Ukrainian official. And do you agree? Well, I felt a sneeze coming on there for a second, but it didn't happen. Let's see. We have 73% that said yes, it will be monumental. 15% said, I need info on strategies. 7% said no, it will be a minor help only. And 5% said unsure. And on this one, I still say it'll be monumental. I think I agree completely with the Ukrainians. This will be war changing for the Ukrainians in their favor. I think it's going to be much more of a bigger help than people think because they're receiving the jets in such large numbers. There's no way that it could be a minor help only. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the F-16s are going to be a major help, especially in the numbers that they're coming in. We already knew that there was going to be 60 of them now in Norway hopping, and I believe that number is getting close to 80. And you have to remember, they have about 90 operational MiG-29s, and those are somewhat okay aircraft. They're getting 90 exceptional, well, nearly 80 exceptional aircraft at this point. That is certainly going to be changing how the Ukrainians are fighting this war and how effective they are. So in my opinion, it's going to be a massive impact on the war effort. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And with that, I believe we're on into the questions.
All right, and moving on to our Super Chat questions, we have a $25 donation from Duncan VR. And thank you very much, Duncan, very much for that support. He says, Ba Muba, and force sheep noises, please, ba 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 ba, sing mad lullaby, oh, fall asleep straight away, oh, sheep, ba ba ba, pillow, ba, quack, meow, oh, man, I'm telling you, run, Scoob, run, 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 quack, sleep, oh, ba ba, count sheep.
Enforcer Matt, rate of fire, 1,200 words a minute. but thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and helping the channel to keep on running. And,
Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, we run this show all night long, and oh man, people act like we're supposed to do that every day. Oh man, I'm telling you.
but still, thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR. And as much as that message goes, yes, we are absolutely exhausted. I can't even really put it into words. Like I was actually,
I haven't been this exhausted in ages. Like I really haven't. Like usually I can pull through the exhaustion, but tonight I fell asleep at one point, I have to admit, and I had to wake myself back up when you yelled. So it actually worked, believe it or not.
Yeah, I knew at that point, but she had gotten too quiet. I was like, I think he's falling asleep over there. So I was like, let me get him up. So I went, and I was like, that ought to get him up. But yeah, it's been a absolutely horrendous day as far as the energy went. I'm not gonna say this though. I'm not gonna say it was terrible because the classes were good. Like there was nothing wrong with the classes, and I think one of the professors was watching too, so I don't want them to think that it was a bad class or anything. I was really interested in the classes today, but for some reason, like the energy drain was just huge. It was unbelievable. I've never been drained of energy like that in a while, ever since undergrad. At some point when we were doing this and I was doing full credits then, and everything involved with that. That was tough as well. But this, for some reason today, it just hit me different. But I gotta thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and we will hopefully be getting some sleep. And thank you for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running so that way we can actually think about sleep. Because, of course, we have to make sure that we can financially support ourselves, and this is our job, and of course a lot of people always want, well, not a lot of people, but some people always think that folks can just work 60 hours a week for free, and that is not the case. Y'all actually make it possible for us to do this as a job and to be able to support ourselves to do it, and that also helps us to sleep because we know that we can do this, and I can continue to do my passion. This has always been my huge passion to cover news like this, in that y'all support us and help us to make this thing possible. So thank you so much for the support, Duncan. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemert, who puts in a $20 donation as well. And thank you very much, Marion, very much for that support. They said, good night, guys, and sleep in tomorrow.
And good night, Marion. And we will sleep in tomorrow. I guarantee you that. Mandy's probably going to be sleeping in till 4 in the afternoon. I'm going to be sleeping in probably until about 10. Because then that's too much. Because you know what I mean. Like you can get like too little sleep, but you can also get too much sleep, and it feels about the same in my opinion. But still, thank you so much for the support, Marion, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because folks like you make this thing possible, and you make it possible for us to be able to sleep. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that really well, and thank you so much for being a soldier of the Lee Spring Army and helping us to keep this thing going. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Snow White for putting in a $50 donation with a super sticker of the YouTube creature riding the rocket and heading off into the wild blue yonder with blue clouds in fact, if I can speak. But seriously though, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Oh man, you keep on calling that thing a YouTube creature, man, but I swear that is literally just a blue pear. Like that looks like a pear to me.
It could be a pair. I call it a YouTube creature though. It's just a little. It's got a bandana on.
Man, you come out, you see one of those things like sticking their head out of the ground of your cabbage patch. You come out of the log cabin, poof, poof. Them damn pears, them damn YouTube creatures coming out of the ground again. But anyways, thank you so much for the support, Snow White, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because while you didn't leave a comment, the support does help us to keep this thing rolling and help us to do it as a job. And that's one thing that I always want to emphasize to everyone is that y'all are the reason why we get to run this thing is through y'all support. And, you know, and of course, we always prioritize fundraisers, but of course, we always thank everyone so much for always looking out for the channel and helping to support us. That way we can keep everything running, fundraisers included, and the weekly live streams. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Snow White, and thank you for helping to make this possible. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Dion Yurchenko. And thank you very much, Dion, for that support as well. They said, thank you guys, and please rest well tonight.
And thank you.
And you better believe I will.
And thank you so much, Dion Yurchenko, for the best wishes on resting well. I always rest well. You can actually ask Matthew this. I'm at the same energy level for the most part, even if I am exhausted throughout the whole day for the most part. Like I can wake up and within 15 minutes, I'm like this already, and I stay like this all the way until I go to bed. Like even if I'm exhausted, I can usually fake it really well, and I'm not even gonna lie, I'm faking it big time right now. Like I am so freaking tired, but hey, when you do this for 548 days, you learn how to power through, and I think that's a big part of persevering is just being able to have the strength and the sheer will to power on through regardless of how difficult it gets. But I thank you so much once again for the support, Dion and Dion Yurchenko, and helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you so much. Not just for your thanks, but also for supporting this channel so that way we can keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Trister1, who puts in a $20 donation as well. And thank you very much, Trister, for that support. He says, get some sleep. I'm telling you.
And thank you so much for the support, Trister. And
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, we're going to sleep real good, real good. Oh, man, I'm telling you. We're going to be sleeping like we turn on the gas in our house. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Sleep real tight. Oh, man, night, night.
But anyways, thank you so much for the support, Trister, and helping the channel to keep on running. And we will get some sleep. And thank you so much for supporting the channel as well, so that way it can be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And also, PBJ Studio said, are you guys brothers? Yes, we are. 18 months apart.
Yes.
And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Great question, by the way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Tom Exman, and who put in a $10 donation, as well as Double, who put in a $5. We also have a $5 from Charge, John Music TV, and Andre Brunette. And they did not leave comments, but thank you all very much. Charge, John, Mark, and Tom, and Double for that very generous support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you to all of y'all so much for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but the support does help us to keep this thing rolling. And y'all support says a lot. It helps us to say a lot more so. And I gotta thank y'all so much for that, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't have been able to do this as a job. We wouldn't be able to keep doing this as a job. And so y'all's support is largely an investment into helping us to keep this channel rolling well into the future. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address all of y'all, and thank y'all so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Opus, who puts in a 15, as well as Gary Moore, who puts in a 10. And he said, LSA, smiley face.
And thank you so much for the support. And I was about to say Lava the LSA. I'm losing it over here, man. But Slava the LSA, or long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for the support to both of y'all and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks like y'all, and I say this to everyone, and I think this is also important as well, because I understand that support depends from person to person. There are some people who come in here and throw in $500 super chats, and there are some people who throw in $1 or $2 super chats. I think they're all equal in worth. Of course, one will help us out a lot more than the other, but sometimes $2 or $5 is the best someone can do, and we are so appreciative to everyone who supports the channel, both big and small, because y'all's efforts combined help us to run this channel the way we've been able to run it, and help us to do this. And so with that, thank you to all of y'all so much once again for support, and thank you to the both of y'all as well, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank y'all to both of you once again.
And the next one goes to Jason Carpenter, who puts in at 10 as well. He says, I admire your commitment to the cause. LSA ain't playing no game. And please take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support. And we do not play games. I'm very serious when I mean that this thing runs 6 days a week. Like even now, like we were like actually I said to my dad, because he came in, he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Man, I'm tired." And Matthew was outside of the room and he said, "All right, man, you might maybe want to cancel the stream tonight." And I said, No. I was like, we got to run this thing 6 days a week, regardless of how tired we are. I'm dedicated like that. When I make a commitment, and I promised to y'all that we were going to cover this war each and every day until it ended, and I'm pretty hard pressed to keep on that commitment while everyone starts throwing in super chats to keep us up later. But I am pretty hard pressed to that commitment. By the way, thank you to everyone who supported the channel, because y'all do make this thing possible to run, and we are so appreciative to all of y'all. The fans are what make us what this channel is. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support, and I got to thank you for also being a soldier in this amazing Lee Spring Army. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also we had a 5 from CK Bold, and they both said to take a live chat question, so we'll grab 2 of them real quick. The first one goes to Plexus Gaming, who says, has there been any confirmation about the placement of nukes around Moscow?
Yes, there's always been nuclear weapons around Moscow. There's actually a nuclear defense ring that's been that was made around Moscow in the 1970s. So there are nuclear weapons surrounding Moscow right now. And so with that, I hope that addresses that live chat fairly well. And let's get on into that second one.
And the second one goes to Eric, who says, did the Ukrainian defenders hit the Crimean Bridge again today?
Not that we heard. If we did, we would have blown that out of the water. And then, there would have been some random guy out there going, "Oh my God, it's clickbait," and then, we would,
Bleeding idiot.
Here comes the server. What? Can I take your order? but anyways, yeah, to answer that question, we haven't heard about an attack on the Kerch Bridge today. So sadly, that didn't happen as far as we know. But if it did happen during the stream, it will be in tomorrow's live stream. That is a guarantee. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is a very generous $100 donation
Holy
from Justice
moly!
Ryan. And thank you very much, Justice Ryan, for the extremely generous support. He says, the sooner this damn war is over, the sooner you two can get some sleep. Take care.
And thank you so much for the mass amount of support, Justice Ryan. Now, I know this. I know that number 1 on your super chat right there is a lie. YouTube's lying. You have been around forever, Justice Ryan. So long that I can't even remember when you joined this channel. You were an old guard through and through and have supported this channel a whole load. And I got to thank you so much once again for supporting us massively tonight. That's the biggest super chat of the night, actually, and a huge support in helping us to keep this thing rolling. And you're absolutely correct. The sooner this war is over, is the sooner we'll get some good sleep. But to me, good sleep is just a sidestep. I don't really value a lot of my own personal well-being or health as to compared to the deeds or actions that I can do. I think that well-being comes second to deeds and actions. Deeds and actions comes first. And that's one thing I've always dedicated to. And that's why, like, even tonight, I could have been one of those people that went, "Oh, I'm going to take care of my mental health. I'm just going to cancel the stream tonight and go sleep." No, you don't do that. There are people dying over there. They're dead. They're dying over there. They're being wounded. There are people in far worse shape than us. All we have to deal with is that we're tired. There are some Ukrainian soldiers over there that are not only exhausted, but they're being shelled right now. And that's one thing that greatly motivates me to always cover this news. Because while I think I have it pretty rough, and it's just really mental and kind of physical, there are Ukrainian soldiers that are being pushed to the absolute limit of what's mentally and physically possible, and they're still able to crack on. And that's one thing that keeps me going. And so once they get a good night's worth of sleep is the day I'll get a good night's worth of sleep. And so with that, thank you so much for the mass amount of support, Justice Ryan, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for being an old guard in this Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jimmy the Third, who puts in a $20 donation. He says, what is the Kerch Bridge really doing? Slav Ukraine and NAFO.
Man, what the bridge doing? The bridge isn't really doing much right now. It's just kind of hanging out. No one's attacked it lately, or at least damaged it severely enough that it was a good attack. So right now it's really doing nothing. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Lee G, who puts in a 5 and says, with Russia adding Western journalists on the sanctions list, do you think Western bloggers are next? How do you think this will play out?
I don't. If Western bloggers are next, I'd tell them come on and give it a try. Because if the Russians try something cheap like poisoning, that's not going to work on us. I'm not even going to explain how that just won't work. We're built different. And I'm just playing. I'm being sarcastic with that. But if they want to actually come here to our house, it's like, please do try. It's like we've gotten 9 death threats, at this point. And from psycho YouTubers and Russians and people sending it over email. I mean, hell, please, to these people, it's like, please do try. Put us on a list. I would love to be on a list. And also that would give me a little bit of a credit. I could plug myself as being someone who's on a Russian hit list. So that I hope that addresses that the best way I can. And I thank you so much for the support, because I don't really think it would mean much, at least to me. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And the next one goes to Nubbing Fluffing Cat, who puts in a 5 and says, I've been dealing with depression and anxiety a lot, and your streams always cheer me up and are fun to watch. I love Scooby and Shaggy, and thank you both.
Like Zoink Scoob, I think he likes the voices. Ruh-roh Racky, voice appreciator. But still, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I love to hear that folks do get a lot of enjoyment out of the stream, and it actually makes their day a little bit better. Because while the war is dreadful, we've gotten Ukrainian soldiers that have told us that the show makes the war a lot more better for them, helps them to pass the time. We've had folks from all around the world say that, and we're always so honored by that. That's one of the best compliments that we can get, especially when it comes from a soldier of Ukraine, and also when it comes from folks that it just makes their life a little bit better and takes a bit of the stress out of the war. And so thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you for supporting the channel, so that way we can keep this thing rolling like it is. Your support does help us to run this channel the exact way we do, and it's very important in helping us to keep this thing going. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a 5 from Joe Little, who says, being tired is an emotion. It's physical. And also we have a 5 from James Moon, who says, go to bed, you two, but take a live chat first.
And thank you to both of y'all for the support. And I'm trying to remember names here. I'm usually
Joe and James.
All right, let me try and figure out which one goes with which, because I'm not good with names. I hardly ever remember anyone's name, so it's very hard for me to remember. But just trying to address the first one and piece it together, can you actually just read them one at a time, Matthew? I know we're tired, but I want to make sure we address each one.
He just said go to bed, and being tired is an emotion. It's physical.
And so, can we actually get the names with the comments? One after
James
the other?
said go to bed.
And we will try here soon. Matthew's trying to do that a little quicker than me. And so thank you for the support. We are on to the next one.
And Joe said being tired is emotion. It's physical.
And yeah, I would say it's not really... I would say being tired is somewhat emotional, but I feel like it's actually more physical. At least for me right now, it feels mostly physical. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to C. Bankhead, who says, just walking around for money, y'all, or something like that. Sorry, y'all are tired. Get some rest. Your brain needs some rest.
And thank you so much for the support. And we will be trying to get some rest here, hopefully soon. And hopefully we'll get a lot of it. It is the weekend after all. We're supposed to be taking it easy then. But maybe we won't. Maybe I won't. But hopefully Matthew can. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Inconsistent User Data, who puts in a 5 and says, ring, ring, we've been trying to reach you about your tank's extended warranty. And Putin in the background, Bliat Shoigu, what did I tell you? It's scam.
Don't pick it up, Bliat! And then the Ukrainians triangulate the location, kill another general. Pog. But still, thank you so much for the support. And I hope that adds on to the joke just a little bit. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Martin Bridge, who says, it's the Ukrainians serving up a cold, hard can of whoop-ass. Take care, enforcers, and enjoy the weekend. And Slav Ukraine.
Have you ever wanted to see the Ukrainians serve up a cold can of whoop-ass? Then you need to watch this war each and every day.
Ben, I thank you so much for the support. And also, I would agree, they are serving them up cold. And, they say justice is a dish best served cold, but also ass whippings are as well. It's kind of the same category of food. So with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. With that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 2 from Eric Kress, who says, here toward a 5 hour.
Huh? 5 hour?
A 5-hour.
Like a 5-hour energy or like 5-hour stream?
5-hour, I guess, energy, hopefully.
Man, if I could get 5 hours of energy,
Oh man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I drink a 5-hour energy. It only gave me 3. Oh man, I'm telling you.
still, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our live chat questions. We are out of super chats. We have the Morse code decoders of the stream. We have Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, and Paul Schultz. And they said tonight's Morse code cipher is a ton of coordinates and Slav Ukraine.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. If some of y'all plugged in the coordinates to Google Maps, you would have actually found out that that was inside of Staromanivka. It was actually dead center of it, because that's where the Ukrainians are trying to go. And so with that, thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again tonight. Y'all have done that for 550 days of the war nearly, and it's absolutely amazing to see that y'all also got the coordinates correct tonight as well. Dead on. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And sadly, due to us trying to reduce the time the stream is running tonight, we will only be answering 3 live chat questions, and then we'll be rounding on out. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, this one goes to DT, who says, why doesn't the Russian army rebel against Putin?
They are very close to doing it. It's the problem mostly is that a coup like that, or the army turning on the government, requires a major catalyst. And that major catalyst hasn't really appeared yet. The only time it did appear was under Prigozhin's Wagner coup, and that ended before it could gain traction. And we were seeing it was clearly gaining traction in the about 22 hours that it existed, but then they shut the whole thing down before it could create the civil war situation, which we would have seen. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Chris J. Excuse me. Who says, what do you say, or what do you think the odds are that Ukraine takes Tokmak by Christmas?
I think the odds are pretty good. I'm not trying to crystal ball or anything, because a whole lot could happen. They might not take it. But I have a feeling that Tokmak is a pretty achievable goal. It's only 12 miles. That is kind of big in battlefield terms in the modern day in the war, but it's still not that big by most strategic terms. It's only a 12-mile jaunt, and it shouldn't be that hard to take it and then hold it. It also will put them within range of Russian supply lines, which they could bombard over winter, and then in the spring, they could begin an offensive towards Melitopol. Well, actually, after the spring, they probably have to do it in the summer. But still, I think they could probably do it. I would say it's probably about a 60% chance, in my opinion, 65%. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
That viewer is Julian Britt, who says, did anyone ever hear who was on the second jet that didn't get shot down following the first jet, and heard everyone got arrested but nothing else?
Yeah, everyone got arrested, but we don't know who was on that jet. The list has never come out, and the Russians have been very hush-hush about the second jet. So we have absolutely no idea who was on that one that got arrested, but whoever it was, they've disappeared into the nether. They are probably in some unmarked grave in the middle of the forest right now, or sitting inside of a Russian prison. One or the other. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I would like to apologize again for the short stream. I know it's kind of out of our control due to us having really no energy tonight, but I hope y'all do understand the kind of circumstances going on behind the scenes that have kind of drained us of energy. But of course, it's been an absolute honor to once again run the news for each and every single one of y'all tonight. At the peak, there were 7.2 thousand of y'all who were online tonight watching this stream, and we are absolutely honored to know that 7.2 thousand of y'all were on at one point watching this stream, and that 30,000 of y'all have watched this news and found it to be of worth something. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to hit the like button and also comment, because that helps these little streams to get promoted to more folks who might also enjoy this and may have never seen it. And also make sure to subscribe, because that makes us really happy. And also it notifies y'all of when these streams and videos run, which is 6 days a week for the live streams at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night except for Monday. And we also run daily short war summaries around 10 to 15 minutes long that cover the war whenever there's breaking news or whenever we have time. Sometimes law school gets in the way of that schedule and we just can't make videos some days. Like Thursday clearly is a day that a video will probably never come out on again. But we're still trying to iron that out and figure out a way to fix that. But nevertheless, thank you all so much once again for watching. I hope that does address that fairly well. Y'all can tell how tired I am. I'm repeating lines that I would say during the question segment. But with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini! And long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army never dies.
And good night, LSA. Thank you all for another great stream and the understanding as well. And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Thank you everyone so much once again for watching tonight. I just want to thank you all so much once again. And while some of y'all may not be watching this little in-credit segment, I just felt like it would be nice to thank you all once again for watching. And I thank every single one of y'all. The Lee Spring Army is an amazing community. It's absolutely incredible. And we are more than blessed to have every single one of y'all as a part of this community. And so thank you all to every single one of y'all so much once again. I can't even really talk right now, but I just wanted to say thanks. And with that, good night.